Good morning, everyone. This is Jeff from the Cyber Pro podcast, back with another episode today. Today we have Trey Robison on, and he's going to tell us a little bit about who he is, what he does, and why he loves us all. And on that, let's jump into the questions. Trey, good morning. How are you? Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
I'm doing well, Jeff. It's very nice to meet you, and thanks for having me on the podcast. My name is Trey Robison. I also go by Ice Bear Hacks online. I'm an IT security auditor, IT consultant, wear a lot of hats working for a MSP, managed service provider, cybersecurity enthusiast. I'm also a student, go to conferences, and I just love technology and I love security.
Yeah, MSP, those are three magical letters. We'll get back to that in a second. I was just at Cyber Huntsville about a month ago, and I took a whole class about how MSPs are in a class of themselves in terms of security vulnerabilities, but maybe we'll get into that one in a second. Question number 2, what would you say in your experience is the most fascinating aspect about being a cyber professional these days?
I don't think it's ever boring. So out of any field you could choose or any type of technology that you could work in, security is always going to be exciting. There's always something new to learn, and there's so many niche areas. So if you get bored in one area, there is a whole world you could open up and study, from like cryptography and web application security and network security and even compliance, governance, risk compliance type work. We need everybody. So it's a huge field and it never gets boring. I'm always running into some kind of problem or another and having to learn on the fly. So learning on the fly is always fun. It can be a little stressful at times, but it's a really exciting field.
Yeah, we've been hearing a lot of different variants of the same question, and we all have a different perspective on what that answer is. Would love to hear yours for question number 3. And the question itself is general, a very general question, but many times the response is not. So with that, when you hear the statement that cybersecurity is a top concern and only getting bigger, what does that mean to you where you sit today, and where do you think that's going to lead in the future?
So I think it's definitely a top concern across many different avenues, from national security to personal privacy to small, medium-sized businesses trying to stay afloat while getting hit with ransomware and any other kind of attack. I think it's just something where we need more professionals and more people building security controls. I work with a lot of small, medium-sized businesses, and I see them get hit with ransomware. They get in a lot of different kind of sticky situations, a lot of scams. So where they'll send like thousands of dollars, and they're smaller businesses, so it does hurt their business, and it's not always covered by insurance. So from what I see, it's just a lot of bad people taking advantage of the vulnerable. I guess it's always been that way, but I'm seeing it a lot just in the cyber world, if you will.
Yeah, so that ties in perfectly to what we were just talking about. Working at a company that's an MSP or an SSP. For those of you who don't know, that's a managed service provider. And you can correct me or add to my following statement, Trey, but historically what MSPs do is they handle many outsourced programs, responsibilities of their client companies that they either don't want to or aren't able to handle themselves, like managing vendors, providers, human capital in some cases. So working for an MSP, you sit in a very interesting situation because you have to guard a tower that not only has your own stuff in there, but your client's stuff in there. So your position is very unique in that you have to defend not only the perimeter which you control, but the perimeter of your client companies which you don't control. Let's talk about that for a second. What's that like?
So that can be a struggle. It can be a struggle for many reasons, from getting the C-level buy-in from your client to actually implement the control that you're asking for. and just keeping on top of it. So we do a lot of proactive security. So we do security awareness training and testing, and we have some requirements like two-factor authentication that we put in place. I think with the company I work for, we have a waiver if you're not going to implement two-factor authentication, where we're not liable if something happens, because we recommend that you have to do that. It's a challenge. We try to do as many cybersecurity assessments as possible. So vulnerability scanning and remediation, any type of cybersecurity assessment that I do, it's not just doing a Nessus scan and putting a company header on it. It's a true cybersecurity assessment. So I'm going into group policies, I'm checking the configurations, making sure they're applied. I'm going to check physical security. I'm trying to cover everything when I'm at the client. And then I have to relay any remediation to the engineers to make sure that they get it done. But it can be a struggle, especially when I talk to a client and I suggest, hey, you really need to do another scan. You really need to check this. We can't have out of date operating systems or whatever that might be. It's that communication and getting buy-in is difficult. I leave a lot of that to my manager, so that's nice on my side. But it's interesting, and we do manage the technology, so they assume that we're also managing security, but sometimes we need additional permission or an additional budget to do some security things because it costs extra time. They might not understand that, so it's
so let me ask you a last question on that. When it comes to specific things around security, and we can pick any number of things, right? We can talk about remediation, we can talk about detection, we can talk about penetration testing, we can talk about everything. Do you do that in-house, or do you subcontract out to vendors, channel partners that you might work with when it comes to specific clients?
So we actually do that. So I conducted the first penetration test that my firm has done. That's my area of specialty, if you will. It's a newer service that we're offering. And again, it's a real pen test. It's not a vulnerability scan with a header on it. I've seen that. And that would be another time to go down that rabbit hole. It's definitely interesting.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, that just about wraps up my questions, except for the fun question, of course. Question number 5, and we love to end with this because we all need to smile because some days are stressful. Tell us about your favorite piece of retro technology and why it makes you smile.
Oh, goodness. I don't know if it's technically retro technology, but it's such a favorite. I have to mention it. And that would be the original Xbox. So Halo 2 specifically on Xbox and Xbox Live. Now, this is my favorite for a few reasons. I do work in security now, but when I was a lot younger playing on Xbox Live for the first time, I discovered the crossover cable and how you can put your PC in between that connection to your Xbox and router, and you can modify gameplay. So that's when I discovered applications like Kane Enable, where you can kind of modify packets and maybe kick somebody who shouldn't be in your party out of your party. And you can actually modify game environment variables. We used a program called .halo, and it was really cool, where you could like jump really high, change spawn points. And for some reason, that just kind of clicked, like, okay, the Xbox is a computer, and I can do all of this interesting stuff like just through my computer while I'm playing it. For me, it was just like the most fascinating thing ever. And I played a lot of Halo 2. So that has to be the one. Yeah.
Sounds like a good aha moment that a lot of us go through. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, thanks for watching the Cyber Pro podcast today. We've got over 100 episodes, and you can find them right here.